Hey Duncan, hold on a second. I think I've mucked up the audio as expected. Hold on one second. How are you? Not yet, but it's my fault. Hold on. Here we go. One more time.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hey!
Hey! It's been 20 years or so. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So good. I want to introduce you to our moderators tonight. They are Marley and Jamie. Marley, give a wave. Jamie, give a wave. Giant fans, part of our film club. They're juniors in the program. And we've just finished source code. So,
okay.
Yeah, we're all, well, I don't know about these guys, but I'm drying my eyes. And so, everything will be all right. Thank you for that.
So did you, I saw that you just discovered the little Easter egg in there.
The Scott Bakula?
Yeah.
Yes. I've never noticed that before, but
that was that's Coulter's dad in the phone call is Scott Bakula.
Mother Christ.
And he even stopped. I think his first line is "Oh boy."
No way. Okay. Well, I don't know how many people.
Well, I'm glad that snuck in.
Yeah, I don't know how many people in the audience are old enough to know that reference. Do you know why there's a Scott Bakula reference, or even Scott Bakula? Everyone's looking very upset.
It's the kids, right? It's the kids.
Oh, kids these days. Scott Bakula was in this amazing TV show called Quantum Leap, in which every week he leapt into the body of another person, and there was always a scene where he would look in the mirror and it would be whoever he was during that episode. So yeah, I love that show. Although the pilot doesn't hold up. I don't know if you've gone back to try to rewatch it.
Not for a while.
The later seasons are amazing, but the first season is a little clunky. Anyway, yeah, that's amazing. I'm very excited about that. Okay, so I'm gonna hand it over, you guys. Here's Duncan Jones. Big round of applause.
Yeah, hi. It's so nice to get to talk to you.
Pleasure.
Like Walter said, we just finished watching Source Code, and I know that it's one of the only films you've directed that you
recording in progress.
Sorry.
Alright, that's alright.
Yeah, one of the only films you've directed that you didn't actually write the script. How different was it approaching a project like that where you haven't been involved since its inception, and what did you learn from that kind of experience?
It's a strange process. How credits work and how films get made. They're very different things. I've worked on each of my films. I've had the chance to work with other writers. Obviously, the first film I did was Moon with Nathan Parker. It was a very collaborative process, but it was the first film I'd ever made, and I felt very comfortable saying, look, Nathan, you take the writing credit on this, even though I would say it was a very collaborative piece. Ben Ripley, who did Source Code, had basically written this script, and it was, I think it was on the blacklist. It was like a script that was known around town. I'd come off the back of Moon, didn't know, the film hadn't even come out yet, so I didn't know what the reaction was going to be, and if people were going to be, ever wanting to see me make a movie again after that film. But I had managed to get an agent. Sorry, it's probably a very long-winded answer. Forgive me, I haven't done one of these in a long time, so I'm doing my best. I got an agent. The agent sort of started shopping me around, like introducing me to actors and people who had seen Moon. And Jake Gyllenhaal had seen Moon, was a big fan of that, wanted to work with me. He had already been attached to this script, so for Source Code. And I jumped on board because I didn't know if I was ever going to get to work again. The writing of the script. Sorry, that's what you were asking about. I think Ben had already an amazing script. It already had an amazing actor attached. So my job was to just make sure that it didn't go off the rails and try and interpret it, how I would see it working out as a film. There was a couple of little tweaks I kind of asked for and made little kind of fiddles here and there, but this is very much Ben Ripley's script, and I was more than comfortable to go with something which so clearly worked, with everyone already being so enthusiastic about it as a project. My job was really just to be the decider as we kind of went along.
What were the tweaks and fiddles? I'm curious.
Yeah. Gosh, it's been such a long time now that that I think maybe it's been a really long time, Walter. So I think maybe it was some of the stuff that we did with the team who are running the source code program, and kind of how we managed to kind of humanize them and not make them completely expositional delivery machines, which is what it could very easily have be. So I think I was trying to make sure that we had ways to kind of humanize those moments and make it more than just perfunctory and doing that job. And then there was obviously there was some differences of opinion after the film came out about where the film should have ended. I know some people have said that they really think, oh no, it should have ended on the freeze frame. But my logical mind could not let go of the fact that that didn't actually make sense. And the only way it could make sense is if we kind of wrapped up the fact that this poor school teacher whose life has kind of been exterminated for the greater good, you kind of have to let the audience know, yeah, that's what happened. Because Coulter obviously continues living in this utopian kind of this new universe that he's been dropped into. But that does mean that it's now him there and not Sean Fentress.
Disturbing.
Very much so.
Yeah, it's a little subtle kind of, a little subtle dark ending that goes hand in hand with the happier ending.
Jake Gyllenhaal said within the first 2 minutes of watching Moon that he knew you had a full grasp of the medium, from story to camera to character. How do you know on set when you have what you need to complete the full story kind of thing?
That's a very good question. I know that you're asking about more than just coverage, but that's part of it. I mean, the thing is, it's always, every film. I've been ambitious in trying to make films of different types. So small indies to kind of source code, which is kind of more of a medium-sized studio film, but then big studio films, and then kind of my own sort of kind of just having my own kind of craziness with Mute that I got to do with Netflix. But on any one of those films, as you're making them, you're constantly juggling compromises about what it is that you want to achieve and how you're going to get there. I know, I have friends who are directors who will just insist, no matter what the resources they have, that they get exactly what it is that they want. I'm kind of a little bit more malleable in that if actors have great ideas, or if I can see that I'm going to need resources later on and I'm going to have to try and find a way to economize in one area so that I have more resources for later on, I'll kind of work that out on the fly. So I think every director approaches it in a different way, and it kind of depends on how you believe that your vision cannot be compromised. And for some people that's really important, and that's the only way they know how to put the clock together. And for me, I'm a little bit more shoot from the hip as far as working out how I'm going to do it. If there are certain action elements or special effects elements that require really sort of planning, very, very intricate planning, obviously I do that. Mm-hmm. But I also like to just have a little bit of flexibility to work out what ideas come out when you're doing stuff on the day.
Like you said, like as someone who's done really indie projects like Moon, and then to like this massive studio movie with Warcraft, and then what you did with Mute with Netflix, what is your favorite part about working more independent, and then what did you appreciate being more in the studio system?
I mean, I was very fortunate. I'm an indirect nepo baby in that my dad did films, worked as an actor on some films, and I got the chance to be on sets for some of those. And there's nothing kind of more amazing than being on a big film set. There was an old film by a guy called Julian Temple called Absolute Beginners, where they built a whole section of London Soho in the 1950s, I think it was, and it was just the most amazing place to be. Like you wander around these film sets, and it's like you're in a completely other world. There's all these actors in their costumes, and they're all kind of giving this imaginary place a life. And I think that experience for me was just something I just couldn't get enough of, which is why, you know, building the set for Moon, even though it was a small indie film, we built the entire space station, and then we would go in there in the mornings when we started to shoot, have the door locked behind us, and then we would spend the rest of the day shooting until you know, lunch break. but we'd stay in there, and I could really feel like we were in that environment. And then Warcraft was the big studio version of that, and it was just amazing. Some of the film sets we built for that, and it's been interesting because I've just come off of a film, Road Trooper, where it's pretty much all computer, all motion capture, green screens, and just an entirely different way of working. I mean, I've experienced that on other films in small pieces, but Road Trooper has been, the entire approach has been that way, because it's another British indie sci-fi, very small budget, and very trying to be incredibly clever about how we built the project. And now technologies, allow us to do things that I could have never done, 15, 20 years ago. So yeah, film sets are a massive draw to me, and that's something I've missed, because I don't make films that often. It's like I'm batting around every 4 years to make a movie, 4 to 5 years, which seems great when you're younger, but as I'm getting older, I kind of understand where Ridley Scott all of a sudden decided to make a film every 1 or 2 years instead of one every 5 or 6 years, which is what he used to do. I think I've lost track of the question.
One of your earlier jobs was in the Jim Henson Creature Shop. Can you speak a little bit about what your experiences were like there, kind of thing?
Yeah, speaking of having really fortunate opportunities, my dad had done this film called Labyrinth, and I got kicked out of school and was trying to work out what to do with my life, and he asked Mr. Henson if he could get me a job, and I was living in London. I'm from the UK. You can probably guess. And he got me a job at the Henson Creature Shop, and I got to spend some time there while they were doing. It was actually really amazing timing, because they were doing a bid for a film called, I think it was called Dragonheart, and it was right at the early stages of computer generated effects, and it was basically, I think it was Lucas. I think it may have ended up being Lucas, but it was one of the big VFX companies, like, was really early in their career, and then Jim Henson was competing for it to try and do it with puppets, and it was we did a scene. We shot a scene with puppets, not like goofy looking puppets, but like realistic looking puppets using forced perspective and all these clever tricks that the Hensons had. And it looked amazing, but they went the VFX route. But it's just like this whole, it was right at this moment where that transition was happening from stuff in camera to stuff being done off, in post-production. It was really interesting.
That's so cool.
And kind of sad, because obviously I was seeing it from their perspective, and how all this work was starting to be drained away and taken away from in-camera model miniatures and things like that.
Yeah, especially since so many of your films are like more science fiction and fantasy. There's so many practical effects like that. What do you think draws you to that genre specifically?
Another good question. I with Moon, I mean, there are films which I feel are mine, and films which I feel where I have a responsibility to deliver something good and interpret it for someone else. So Moon and Mute are my movies. They're my stories, and in a very kind of in a very real way, they're kind of therapy for me for some things that happened to me when I was growing up, that I kind of interpreted in very indirect ways. And then Warcraft and Source Code are not mine, but they were my opportunity to really dive into someone else's idea and try and work out if I could deliver that story in a way that I really, felt an ownership, but understood that it was someone else's project. Road Trip has been kind of, again, a very unique situation where I kind of feel like that part of my filmmaking I've kind of addressed now, and Road Tripper first of all, it's kind of my first, comedy in a way, you could say. It's got, Jermaine Clement and Matt Berry and all of these amazing, a globe of comedy actors who are in it, and we just had so much fun. Yeah, sorry. I'm nervous.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
You've talked a little bit about responsibility and obligation, and I want to ask specifically about the Warcraft movie. We come into this world with just such an understanding of you kind of have to know that you're in this high fantasy realm and that there's these powers that be. And I want to talk about what it feels like from a writer's standpoint of you have this established fan base that's massive who has an understanding of this world, and yet you're also trying to make a film that appeals to the masses. How do you find that kind of middle ground of where people can still get into it, but the people who know what's going on know what's going on?
It's really tricky to know. What am I trying to say? What am I trying to say? I think I'm trying to say that if you have something that already has a pre-existing audience, I think audiences that are not familiar with it are far more willing to say, "Oh, I don't understand this. I'm not one of you, so I don't understand it." If it's something where nobody knows about it, you can be as kind of as off the wall and play with ideas that challenge them to think. I think in a way that where there's an IP, a pre-existing IP, I'm not going to say the audience is lazy. The audience isn't lazy, but I think they're far more willing to give up if they're supposed to be paying attention, because I don't think Warcraft is that complicated. It's group of funny-looking people need a new home, and they go to a new place where people already exist, and they fight. And there are good people and there are bad people on both sides. That's Warcraft, basically. It's not that complicated, and all the funny names and things can throw you. But essentially the story is pretty simple. But because it was based on something that was already so well loved by a particular group of people, I think in some ways that ostracized a lot of people who felt like, no, this isn't for me. I don't really understand this. This is, and all these crazy names, and I don't know these places, and this is not Tolkien, and whatever it is, whatever the reasons were for maybe feeling a little bit distanced by that particular fantasy. I understand it. I just don't think it was as complicated or as difficult to understand as maybe some people thought. It's tricky though, because that maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe it was just way too complicated. I didn't see it that way.
So I know before you got into film, you were actually pursuing a PhD in philosophy, very different paths of study. Where you're talking to a bunch of film students, and I know even currently people say that film school really isn't worth it, and you still made the decision to go to film school. Can you speak to what value that experience brought you, and if you recommend it or not?
I mean, I was at this really lovely little film school in the UK called the London International Film School, and one of the things that I think they did incredibly well is that they just gave people cameras and just got them making stuff all the time. So you would like within your first 6 months there, you were already shooting 16mm film. I know you don't do that anymore. Everyone shoots digitally, but back in those days, you used to shoot on film. And you would develop the film, and you would cut the film, like literally physically cut the film. So kind of, it really gave you a very tactile experience of filmmaking right from the start, and it was great. It was like a 2-year course at that film school, and it was basically just it was just setting projects and then, here, go, and then give you all the equipment. Then you'd have to make little crews, and then you do one job and then you crew up for someone else in another job. It was also something where they didn't really have any specific programs for directors or for any particular discipline. You did everything and you crewed on everyone else's films, working in all those different jobs. So it was, I believe, I don't know because I didn't go to film school in America, but I believe in the States, a lot of the time you kind of know what you want to be and then you do that job. And it didn't go that way. But what I would say is the benefits of the way that my film school worked is that you really did get a pretty full understanding, of holistic of how films get made and what everyone's job is and understand why all those jobs are important.
You've had, we'll say, a diverse and artful upbringing, and I'm just kind of curious what some atypical influences that you use in your film that you experienced in that upbringing were.
I mean, the best advice my dad gave me, which is kind of a quote that some people know, is about getting in the water a little bit deeper than you think you can swim, and always kind of letting yourself just get a little bit uncomfortable with the responsibilities, the creativity, the thing that you're immersing yourself in, so that you're forced to kind of stretch your brain a little bit and work out how to do things that you don't already know how to do. It's another reason why I wanted to do all these different kind of scales of project and work with very different people. And I think that's what's been, again, going back to Road Tripper that I'm doing now, this is a whole different way of filmmaking. I've never done anything, to be honest, no one's ever done anything the way we're approaching this movie. And it's been, we're almost in our third year working on it now. And it's, even up until now, it's been laying down the track in front of the train as far as working out how are we going to actually make these shots, how are we going to make this film look the way we want it to look. But it's so much fun. I like problem solving, it's just so much fun to try and work out how you're going to do things that seem, if not impossible, just seem really challenging.
You said that you use film a little bit as therapy, Duncan, and you claim two of them for your own, but I see kind of a through line through all of your movies that I find kind of touching. Can you talk a little bit about what you think you're working through?
I can talk about some of it. Some of it's a little personal.
You don't have to be specific, just in general in your film. You can also pass if you want. We can take this offline.
Look, I mean, Moon is clearly about isolation and being kind of left on your own, and that's definitely a big old. If I had a therapist, that's my big number one issue, is that a fear of abandonment. My parents got divorced when I was still a little kid. In a very unusual situation, I actually was given, my dad brought me up. Back in those days, it was almost always the mother, but my mother was not in a state to be able to do that, so I went with my dad. But then he went on tour all the time and was living his own crazy life, so he hired someone in to look after me. And then, as time progressed, it became, she had her own life to live and she had things she wanted to do. So I got sent off to boarding school, and I went and did that for a few years. And then after that, I was kind of on my own. So, that's kind of my potted history. And if my films ever reflect a sense of a bit of alienation, a bit of abandonment, that's pretty much where that comes from.
So I see that, but what I see on the other side is your films all have these heroes that are so dedicated to finding their own voice and their own identity, and not losing their humanity in the process of doing it. You deal with dark subjects like Mute, especially, is a very dark film, but it's such an extraordinary resolution. He literally finds his
I'll
voice.
tell you a crazy story about Mute,
Yeah.
which I still haven't wrapped my head around. I'm not into mysticism or anything like that, or magic or anything like that. But my son has a very severe thing called severe speech apraxia. He can't talk. And he was born just before we shot Mute. I've been trying to make Mute for like 10 years before we made the movie. And then he was born, and my producer said, "I'm so sorry, I know the timing on this is terrible, but Netflix said that they'll make the movie. Do you want to do it now?" And my wife was like, "This is ridiculous, I can't believe it now, but okay, let's do it." So we took my 4-month baby, or my 4-month son, out to Berlin to make this movie. You know, we managed to make it work. They were, you know, it was stressful but wonderful. We had a wonderful time in Berlin, and then we moved to London, spent some time there before coming back. And as he kept on getting older, he wasn't talking, and it was so weird that off the back of that movie, yeah, I have a son he's nearly 9 years old now, and we're still struggling to get him to actually speak. But we'll get there. But I just thought that was weird.
Did you have any questions from the audience for Duncan? It's a nervous shuffle. Here's one. Here we go.
Sorry, I have a really far walk to get up here.
that was worth the trip. That really.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. My name is Savannah. I was wondering, you had mentioned earlier that you had gotten an agent after your first film, and I was wondering if you think younger directors should get agents and the value in that, because we don't talk a whole ton about agents in this program.
Gosh. I gotta be honest, in a way, if it's gonna happen, they're gonna come to you.
Okay.
We did very well at Sundance when Moon was made. You know, the film hadn't come out yet. We did our first big premiere at Sundance. Sony Classics immediately kind of came in and took the film, and that's when agents were interested. So, and then there's a whole dance where you kind of go and meet various agents. As soon as one starts coming at you, generally the other agencies will also come and see if you have something to offer them, if they have something to offer you, and you'll come, you know, if you have the opportunity, you'll take meetings then. But it really has to be about the work first. I mean, it's a very different time as well, because I mean, there's a whole bunch of, you know, there are YouTubers who are represented now. There's all different ways of generating work that agents are interested in representing that never existed back when I was looking at that. What's really useful about agents is packaging. I don't know if you've heard of that term or what that is, but it's when you reach the point where you have a script that you're really happy with and you feel really positive about, and you know that it's worth pursuing. Basically the best thing to do is to try and attach actors who are going to help you bring in the money to get the film made, or bring in the studio, or however you plan on doing it. If you can do it as an independent, whatever the scale is, if you can get an actor who can help drum up interest, that's probably the most constructive way you can move the film forward. Agents really help with that. If you try and do that without an agent, it's really going to suck. It's going to be very difficult to get actors to take you serious, for their managers to take you serious, for their agents to take you seriously. There is a whole web of middle men and women that want to know that you are part of that network. So that's the tricky thing, is or the useful thing rather about having an agent when you're starting out, is it gives you a certain certification that you're the real deal. You actually know how to make movies professionally and can work the way people expect you to.
Thank you so much. That's super helpful.
Oh, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Yeah, come on
Oh no, you see, this is worth the walk.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Carlos. Were there any films that influence source code by chance?
Well, I mean, clearly, I know that the TV show Quantum Leap was definitely something that was on my mind, and I would imagine probably on Ben Ripley, who was the writer of the script as well. I think oh gosh, I'm sure at the time there was, but the crazy thing is how long ago it was. I mean, I must have been in 2009, 2010. You were probably still in diapers at the time.
I was 4.
So definitely.
Oh, it was a long time ago. I've got no, it was a long time ago. So I'm trying to think what the films would be. Maybe I want to say North by Northwest was one that Jake and I used to talk about a little bit. There was a couple of other films we used to talk about. I'm trying to remember what they were. Sorry, I don't think better than that.
Groundhog's Day.
Yes, Groundhog Day, absolutely. Yeah. No, that was something we often talked about. And I tell you what we did talk about a lot was Harrison Ford, to be honest. And mainly because, there was something that I was hoping that I could get Jake to do, which was the kind of amiability but the hard done-byness of Indiana Jones, where he's really so easy to watch and you just feel so comfortable in his hands as a leading man. But also he's everything is against him. You always feel that everything is against him. It's like, oh God, again. And there was that kind of that sense of just things never working out quite the way he needs them to, that Harrison Ford does so well. And I think in that particular regard, Jake has never been better. He completely captured that kind of sense of frustration, but still someone that the audience can feel completely comfortable with.
This movie reminded me a lot of the great sort of genre films from the late '80s, stuff like RoboCop, of course, and Inner Space, especially.
Oh yeah.
The way they communicate, but also the sort of surprising level of sentimentality in it. I think it really works as an emotional piece as well. How much of that was your doing, and how much of that was sort of baked in?
I think a certain amount of it, and not just my doing. I think Jake as well. I think this was a big moment for Jake. He'd just come off the back of Prince of Persia, and was like me, was thinking, what are we going to do next? What's happening next in our careers? And I think we both really wanted to get at something that felt that did kind of tug at the heartstrings a little bit, and that I think that connection, trying to find ways to get your protagonist to connect with the audience on an emotional level is really important, and it's tricky. I think it's a difficult thing to make it not cloy or not to feel authentic, and to feel and have the audience feel like, yeah, I want to root for this person, for this woman, or for this man. I want to be on their side while we're being told this story. And it's not always easy, and it's writing, and it's also casting. It's finding the right person to have the audience feel safe with, as they're being told the story.
Other questions? Yeah. Well.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rowan.
You just came in from the side.
No, I was sitting there right off camera over there.
Like a ninja move.
So we just finished watching Source Code, and obviously there's lots of scenes where Jake Gyllenhaal is kind of alone in this capsule, and he's talking to a camera, and in Moon.
Much like me right now.
Yeah. And in Moon, it's basically that whole movie is kind of all on Sam Rockwell's shoulders. So I was just wondering if you could give us a little insight into your directing process when talking to actors, especially if they don't necessarily have scene partners to bounce off of.
Yeah, I think I'm working on that. I think I need to get better at that. Just working with actors, and I'm okay at it. And I think sometimes you can over explain things, and you can over direct. I think I'm right on the edge there, in that I learned to get better at backing off a little bit. If you work with good actors, they've done their own work, they've done their own homework. I think in the early stage of the process, when you're sort of talking about the script with them way before you're on set, I think that's really the moment where you can say, these are the things that I'm thinking, but tell me about the things that you're thinking. Let's make sure that we meet somewhere in the middle. And I think that's on the whole, that's the best place for that part of the process to happen, rather than when you're on set. you don't want to be working that shit out when you're on set. And there's a crew waiting to get a shot. You're waiting on, you have a limited amount of light. You're gonna go into time and a half. there's all these reasons why you want to have those conversations. And funnily enough, the film that I had the most rehearsal time on was Moon, which was our tiny little British indie film. But Sam Rockwell and Yul Vasquez and myself spent 2 weeks in New York just rehearsing. Just nothing but rehearsing, just going over the script again and again, refining it, changing the script, until we really kind of knew where we were by the end of it, knew exactly what we wanted to do. And then film set just becomes a technical exercise, It's like seeing what the film set actually looks like when you don't have that much money to spend on it and go, oh, okay, thank God I can shoot in this angle. I can move the camera from here to here and it doesn't look ridiculous. But yeah, no, that's the film that had the most rehearsal time on it, and I think that's one of the things that I don't know. I mean, I've worked with a couple of producers, but I think producers who appreciate and understand the benefits of that will get a better film at the end of it if they can find you the rehearsal time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions? Yep. And then Kurt.
Hi, I'm interested about your process when shot listing, like from conceiving like a look to like finalizing, and like generally like your workflow with like a DP.
Yeah, it's been different for me on most films. I've only worked with let's see, I think so. I think I've only worked with one cinematographer twice so far, and they've all been very different. And that was Gary Shaw on Moon and Mute. He did those two films together. And we have kind of a shorthand because we used to do commercials and music videos before film, so we kind of knew each other and knew what we liked, and we had a bit of a shorthand. Every project has been different as far as how I've approached it. Like I said, I do like to leave things a little bit loose, and I don't over storyboard things. I really kind of save the storyboards for technical, for technical scenes or special effects or action set pieces where you really need to plan it out ahead of time. If I don't have to, I'll kind of work it out on the day. Let the actors, we will rehearse on set a little bit as well, just in order to feel out the space and kind of know what's possible within the finished set. And then I will kind of talk with the cinematographer, and we'll literally work out what our coverage is going to be once we've done that process with the actors on the day. So even though I was just like moments ago saying try and work it out as much ahead of time as you can, there is still going to have to be a process when you have your physical sets in front of you and you've got the space that you can work in, where you have to work things out a little bit more. I mean, I'll always go in like the night before. As soon as the set's ready, I'll go in and kind of start getting some ideas. But until you actually have your actors kind of working it out within the environment, you don't know exactly what they're going to be doing. There are some directors who are very prescriptive about what their actors need to do in order to get the shots that they already have in their heads. But I tend to want the actors to feel a sense of ownership, and that works for me. But the other way of working can absolutely work for other directors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Carter, and then we'll throw it back to our moderator.
Hello. My name is Carter. This may be a little bit of a generic question, so forgive me, but are there any like films that you watched as a kid, or like filmmakers who made those films, or anyone you met in your personal life, anything like that, that just made you want to make movies like this? Like anything in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I there's a lot. We had Have you seen any Errol Flynn movies? There was a movie called The Seahawks which was this big pirate extravaganza. I think it was black and white.
I don't think I did.
It's so much fun. But I remember just being, I used to watch that film multiple times all the time. I mean, there's all of the generic stuff, not generic, God, that's the worst word. But there's all the stuff you would expect me to say. Like, I love Blade Runner, amazing film, and huge influence. But I think the adventure and the kind of the fun of Errol Flynn movies and old James Cagney movies was certainly one of the early things that kind of got me excited about movies and what they could do and how they could take you away on adventures. It's funny because every movie I'm making, it's going to be different influences that I'll kind of seat myself in. And right now I'm making this film Rogue Trooper, which is this British comic book inspired thing. And fun and adventure is definitely where my head's at right now, rather than, much more kind of a darker material when I was doing Mute. So, every film kind of takes me on a journey as to what I'm interested in, and kind of, it's different every time.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Duncan, I'm kind of surprised to see a Rogue Trooper hat. I thought the whole thing was animated. Is there actually part of it that's practical? That's.
No, it's animated, but we had some props built for both inspiration and so when the actors came in to do our mocap. Hello, my love. What are you doing here? Are you okay? I'm doing a little. Bye. I gotta do this. Okay, I'll just be a few more. Okay, love you. You wanna say hi? You wanna wave? No. Sorry. You don't say that. Come on, say it. All right. Away. Okay. Sorry. What was the question?
You've talked a little bit about Rogue Trooper and that it's mocap and it's animated, and I was wondering if you could share just a little bit more details about what exactly the film is and how it looks and all of that.
Yeah, so we made an early decision mainly because of budget and because we thought that maybe the technology was right at the time to use the Unreal engine, the Unreal game engine, to make a movie. And we jumped in both feet early before, what are you doing? And so sort of we were again trying to make a movie while the technology was kind of catching up and having to okay. And I'm so sorry, Walter. Man, I haven't done this in a long time, so
I love
not since
Great.
like born. So yeah. So what we did is we made, this was kind of crazy. We made I wrote the script, and then I did all the voices for the whole script. we edited it out like a radio play, and then we did an animatic, sort of in the way that maybe Pixar would approach it, and we made an animatic of the entire movie. And then, this is really weird, is once we cast the film, I made the actors watch the whole film, the whole finished film, before we shot it, so they could see, look, this is my intention, these are my silly voices, let's do something like that. Probably not like that. Okay. So we actually, we had the animatic on set with us when we were doing the mocap, and what we ended up doing is we would have it was a 2-week shoot, so we were doing, this is crazy, we would do like 12 pages a day of mocap. I know, it's a crazy way to work. So basically we shot the whole film in 2 weeks, and we were just doing mocap of faces. I'll get into this properly when we're closer to the release of the movie and explain it, because it is an extraordinary and different way of working, and it's worked out for us. The process is slow, but the work that you do with the actors was really concentrated. And every day we would have different actors coming in, and we'd do their pages, and then we would do their pages. and on those 2 weeks, and then basically what we would do is we would work with the animators. We would do basically all of their body animation separately. So we would have stuntmen obviously doing certain stuff, and then we would have these other performers who would come in and do the body work for the actors, based sometimes on witness cameras that would show what they were doing, and other times it would just be kind of our animators or me saying, look, I really want him to do this while this scene is going on, and we would come up with completely unexpected body language from what the actors had originally done, because it was kind of, we would be building the environments as we started building on top of the animatic. Again, Pixar kind of have a somewhat similar thing they do for animated movies, where they'll start with the storyboards and they'll iterate and they'll iterate and iterate, and things get more and more looking like the finished movie as they go along. And that's kind of how we started off. So we had these very basic sort of key-framed and storyboarded, and bits of me videoing myself doing stuff. It was kind of this real kind of mix. Okay, this is a little distracting, I'm so sorry. You're just gonna stay there? Okay. It became like this real collage to make up the animatic. And by the end of it, you know, we would just replace all of the pieces. And that's what we've been doing for these past year, is replacing all the pieces of the animatic. And, you know, there might be a couple of little, like improvisations and things that we did when we were working with the actors, but it was already pretty much there based on the script, recorded audio, and then the animatic built on top of that. So it hasn't changed drastically since those early days before the actors. It's a very strange way of working.
Guys, with a question?
Yeah, ask a question.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Josiah, and I just want to say it was a pleasure meeting you for real. I am, my whole family and myself, we are huge Labyrinth fans. Like, I'm talking, man, like in my dorm right now, pretty much the biggest poster there is a Labyrinth. And also, when I first learned piano, I learned as the World Falls Down song. So I'm like a huge fan. It's a big honor, sir. But I just wanted to say if there's any like other cool like behind the scenes that you have of that movie, or if it's anything cool you want to share or whatnot.
I mean, like I said, it was just what was amazing about about being pretty young when that film was being made and being able to run around on those film sets is just, you know, there's something about movie sets that is the magic that you talk about when you talk about movie magic. It's actually being able to be in these fantastical imagined places and really seeing them as existing places. And sorry, you gonna put it on? Okay. You can put it on. Yeah. So you know, I got to control a little goblin in Goblin City. So I was up in like one of the second floor buildings in Goblin City, little guy next to Brian Henson, who's like Jim Henson's son. He was like showing me what to do. So I had an amazing experience on that, and yeah, that it was that experience that led me on to having the chance to work in the Creature Shop, you know, like a couple of years later. So yeah, it was a very good memory, very formative memory. There was another experience like that I had actually, because when I went off to graduate school, that was not for me, and I got a chance to work on a Tony Scott TV show that my dad was working on, and got to be a cameraman, and I was running around. Do you know the actor Giovanni Ribisi?
Sure.
He was an amazing actor. He is an amazing actor. And we were just kind of running around in the background, just shooting extra footage for the show. Which one is that? Oh, is that the one from Roblox? Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay. So last question from Marley. You have anything to set us off with?
Yeah, you've talked a lot about you've had the opportunity to work with so many different kinds of producers and actors and cinematographers. What do you look for in building those collaborative relationships, and what kinds of people do you feel like you work best with, and what makes like a functional working relationship for you?
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds kind of maybe lame, I don't know, but I I really want to work with nice people because you're going to be spending a lot of time with them, and there's going to be conflicts and hot moments and times when you don't all agree with things, but there's nothing that just wear you out than working with someone who's no fun, who just makes things a drag. And I've had to do that once or twice, and it's just not worth it. When you're starting out, you don't always have a huge number of choices. But the more you work, the more you start to refine, your crew, the people you like working with again and again, and it's, I think that's why you often find many filmmakers kind of they become families over time. They work with the same people again and again because you know that people are going to be able to do what you need them to do, but also you enjoy the creative process with those people. And I think that's definitely even at film school. And I'm not sure again how what you're doing would works with this, but when you start finding a group of people who are kind of all have a similar kind of feel and agenda and things that they want to do. Oh yeah, is that TV man or is that speaker man? Oh okay. Okay, I'll come and see you in a minute. Okay. Okay. So no, I was just saying that when you're at film school, if you can get these groups of people together that you enjoy working with, I think your own enthusiasm and drive to get things made just multiplies. I think trying to do it all on your own. I know that there are some geniuses out there who can just sit at their computer and just make stuff on their own, and it's an incredible talent. But there's nothing quite as inspiring as collaborating with other talented people. I just find that way you just get more done and you have more fun doing it.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we have a little tradition. We have everyone come up in front of this giant screen that you're on. If you want to look, this is where you are. It's projected 30 feet. To come up to take kind of a selfie with you. So, would you indulge us with that?
Yeah, of course.
All right, here we go.